Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Arrow Season 5, Episode 2. It's called The Recruits. Full spoilers for the episode. And this week, Connor actually got to get drunk for this episode, so
Yeah. Peter talks, I slur this week.
yes. Because that's how Connor likes to get through an episode of Arrow, is intoxicated.
It helps a lot. I mean, I found stuff funny. I'm not sure if it actually was funny or if it was just me, but I laughed a lot.
Yeah, I laughed a lot at one thing, but it definitely wasn't a joke that was intentional.
Which thing did you laugh at?
So when Thea sees the medical woman or whatever her company was talking to Thomas Church,
Amtech?
Amtech, something like that, yeah. But anyway, we cut to this shot up in the roof, and we see a really obvious stunt double who's meant to be Thea, like doing this a little bit of parkour as she like gets out of position. And it's actually a really nice shot in terms of following the action, but it's so obviously a stunt double, and she's in like these regular street clothes that it just looks so silly.
I agree. It's a shame because obviously I think the action has improved from the second half of last season, the
Mm.
actual stunt choreography, but the hiding the stunt doubles clearly hasn't. Because that was a major issue we had a while
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, especially with Damien Dark. Every time Damien Dark
Yeah.
was in a scene.
This, admittedly, it wasn't as bad as that, but it was noticeable, and that's bad enough.
Yeah, it was really noticeable. So, plot of this one is that Oliver's got his new recruits. He's got Curtis, he's got Evelyn Sharp, and he's got Wild Dog, and he's training them. And we find out that the way he's training him via some handy flashbacks to his time in Russia, were how the Russian mob were training him to see if he was good enough to get into their ranks. Which, by the way, is the whole flashbacks. The whole flashbacks is the story of this little one test, and it's very quickly become the flashbacks are just as useless and have as little content
Do you,
actually in them as last
do you
season.
know what cracked me up about the flashbacks?
Mm-hmm.
I'd get it if, like, you see the start and then you get to the end of the arc of the flashback. The whole point was, oh yeah, it's teamwork, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the arc of the flashback, and I appreciate that. If they hadn't told us it was teamwork in the present before they showed us it in the flashback.
I also think it was stupid. Like, you should have done the flashback right, the story of this lesson, this game, to prove himself right, and then after he's finished the flashbacks, after he's actually won it, and then you have him start the game in present day because you realise that he's going to use this on them, but they already started it in present day, and then they were both running alongside each other.
See, that doesn't bother me as much because that's something Arrow's done since the start. So that's not as much of an issue for me personally. I can accept that's just its formula. But it's the way that the whole point of the arc was undermined by him telling us it in the present before we discovered it in the flashback. It ultimately made the flashback pointless. If we discovered the whole thing was teamwork in the flashback and then they apply it in the present, that makes sense to me. It has a purpose. But this way around, it's just, why is it there now? Other than to fill time, of course.
Yeah. Otherwise, Ragman's here, and he's going after the people that work at this company because they're responsible for the nuclear bombs that killed people on what they're calling Genesis Day, which was cracking me up to no end.
Me too.
Because at one point, like we'll talk about Diggle's story in a minute, but one of the soldiers was like, "Oh, we can fight the Taliban and we can fight Al Qaeda," and but Genesis Day was too much, and I'm like, "Oh, Phil Collins and his band were too much for you." Hey? Is that it?
I like to imagine Genesis Day is the day that they eventually reform. So in the near future, fingers crossed,
Uh,
that
they,
that will become to known as Genesis Day.
are they all still alive?
I've no idea.
Yeah,
I'm
not that I, but I just
I'm too drunk to answer that question.
that's fair. So Oliver doesn't trust the team. He tries to sort of. They kind of get included at one point where they're all dressed in like civvy clothes as if they're helping at the event, and Ragman shows up. Ragman, who by the way looks nothing like Ragman in the comics. If anything, he looks more like Scarecrow.
From the Nolan movies, yeah.
But with like some rags that he can control, like tentacles.
Yeah, which look awful.
It looks pretty bad. not gonna lie. But yeah, it all just sort of comes to a head, and at the end, Oliver decides to unmask so that they can trust him. Now, I get him doing this eventually. The problem I had with this is right at the start of the episode, immediately Curtis is complaining, why doesn't Oliver try and trust them? Why doesn't he reveal who he is? And I'm like, because they're practically random strangers off the street that he doesn't, like...
Do you know what is even my biggest problem? I can get that maybe he's learned to just be like that, but he even says, maybe Felicity says it, when they all joined the team, he didn't tell them who he was straight away. Like, if you think back to season 1, Diggle, he didn't tell until he was, like, dying. I'm pretty sure. It was like a big event. And same with Felicity, actually. I think he was shot and he was in the back of her car, and that's when she found out who he was. It's not like he went to them straight away and went, oh, this is who I am.
Don't get me wrong, I have no problem with the idea that he unmasks to gain trust. In fact, it's a very Batman thing to do,
But it has to be earned, doesn't it?
It does have to be earned, and it doesn't feel like it was earned here. It was mainly just him whining all episode that they weren't good enough, and funnily enough, it was Felicity who came in and told him what he should do, and he did it.
Speaking of Batman, I feel like his arc at the minute is very similar to post Jason Todd's death. The idea of him being very protective and wanting to do it alone. That's very similar to what we got back then.
Yeah, I can see it. Of course, he eventually realizes that Ragman just wants vengeance because his father and whatnot died in the nuclear blast.
Do you know what I think is really petty about Ragman? He like, all these nukes were launched. There was like hundreds of them, right? And one got through, and he's blaming the company that built that one nuke instead of the person who launched it. I don't understand.
Sure. But what I was getting to is that we see Felicity kind of react and cry when this is brought up. Because if you remember, she was somewhat responsible for that nuke hitting the city and killing 10,000 people.
Somewhat is an understatement.
And she was cracking jokes as if nothing had happened within about 24 hours of that event. So, it was just interesting for them to bring this up again and see her actually, show a human emotion. I mean, that was nice.
It was actually something nice. Something that the writers got right for once.
Maybe if Donna had came back for the episode and she had a good word with Oliver early on, he would have learned not to lie as long as he did.
It's true. I got give the writers credit where it's due. They're backdating and actually making Felicity have some emotion over the fact that she nuked 10,000 people. I mean, it was their fault in the first place. But at least they're doing it.
Too little, too late is all I'm saying.
I agree.
Too little, too late. So Diggle's got a storyline because he's in the army and he's there's almost no context to this given at all. It's almost like a second set of flashbacks where they're telling this story over like maybe 4 scenes, something like that, and there's almost like no context given. Like, yeah, they explain what the mission is at the start, but you almost don't take much of it in, and all of a sudden there's like people on his side betraying him in the army because they're trying to sell a WMD to someone.
Know who any of these people are.
We don't. We have no idea who any of these people are. We have no idea, because there's, like I say, context. There is zero context to anything that's going on in these scenes.
We got one scene with the new guy who stayed behind after they all got dismissed for some reason, even though he was dismissed.
Yeah, for the most generic, it's your first day on the job, soldier, fear gives us our strength, yada yada yada.
Classic speech.
Yeah.
Dig robbed that out of like any one of 1,000 movies.
Yes, but he made it the most bland and generic version of it he could.
He did. And then I called it straight away, well, he's dying today.
Of course, yeah, that was obvious. That was clear as day.
Yeah. And
he did. Oh, of course, Diggle's been framed for his murder, and they're going to pin the whole thing on him, the corrupt soldiers, but if it sounds like this is a rush part of the conversation, it's not. This is literally how it was kind of presented to us. It was just, here's some soldiers, they're double-crossing Diggle because they're trying to steal these weapons.
Do you know what, this could have worked if we'd had a few episodes building up these people as a team, like understanding their right, because these soldiers, they've clearly, like, there's the one new guy, but I assume the rest of them have been a team for a while. Like, they act like they have been.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just nothing. Like, it's just straight in, betrayal. Okay, cool.
Also, I love how everyone on the team is pretty much in this evil plan except Diggle and
And the new
kid.
guy. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
It works out.
Also, you said, oh, it felt like another set of flashbacks. There was a point where it transitioned to it, and I actually thought it was a flashback for like 5 or 6 seconds until I saw Diggle. I was like, oh, it's just this.
Yeah.
Because it even has that same kind of off. I mean, I think it's just because he's in a different location, but it has that off-color almost filter that the flashbacks do.
It also has that same Rush story with no depth feeling to it as well.
Yeah, it
So,
does. It's not
yeah,
good, basically.
so that took up more time. If I'm giving you any positives, yeah, the camera work and the direction was a little bit better again, but it was the same director as the first episode, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I think we spoke about him last season. He had the best direction last season as well.
Yeah.
So
Which makes me think next week, presumably next week, will have a different director, and I'm just wondering if it'll just go back to the same level of quality as most of last season.
yeah, I'm just waiting for it at this point because this, we're complaining, but this wasn't awful. It wasn't good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it was good, but it wasn't atrocious either.
It wasn't as bad as some of last season. That is the extent of the.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was good as last week's either, though.
Oh no, it wasn't. No, there was more to complain about in this. Oliver's still clearly quite happy to kill people in this episode. He's like stabbing people with arrows right through the stomach.
That annoyed me. Where he stabs someone with an arrow and then he just drops it. It's like, that's a perfectly good arrow. Use it.
Oh, I can still shoot that. That's fine.
Exactly. Why is he just dropping on the floor?
Yeah. We get another look at this villain in the hood. That's another Black Archer. Who doesn't kill Thomas Church, but he
He throws something into his back.
yeah, he warns him against killing Green Arrow. He's like, Green Arrow's mine. And Thomas Church asks him, who are you? And he's Prometheus.
So, new for the show, as far as I'm aware.
I don't know any character called Prometheus, because when we guessed last week, we guessed a couple of names, but it wasn't.
Yeah, we speculated maybe Komodo.
Yeah, that seems like the most likely, but no.
Prometheus doesn't ring any bells. I'm thinking it's probably someone else or a couple of characters that they've mashed together and just given a new name.
Possibly. Yeah, they made a new character, so what did they do? Oh, we'll do another evil archer.
Because they have no mind. No, do you know what this is? This is another case of what we spoke about last week, where they've just gone back to going, what did people like in season one? No, it's not even that they know what people liked in season one. They just went, people liked season one. What did we do then? We did an evil archer. Let's do that again. That's what it is.
It's always funny, actually, looking back at season one now. Like, it was such a different show in a lot of ways, because his mother was around, her, like, new husband was around, and they were in a lot of storylines over the season. Like, it was such a different show. Tommy was there, Laurel was there. Like, it was such a different cast.
I miss Walter, because, I mean, the mother, at least, obviously, she got a satisfying conclusion. She was killed, obviously. Like, that works. But Walter just kind of vanished.
I think he appeared, like, once or twice in season two, like, briefly. And then
he kind of just faded away. And I was kind of disappointed, because, like you said, like, okay, I will give this episode a positive. It shows his life outside the vigilantism, obviously, as a mayor. And I appreciate that, because as we're talking about here, season one, he had a family life. He had these problems with his mother and, stepfather almost. And there was stuff going on that was outside of just the Arrow stuff. And I feel like it got away from that a lot, where the entire show was just that. So at least we're kind of getting something that's not just that now.
Sure.
It's not necessarily great stuff, but I appreciate the break.
Okay, sure. Which reminds me of another plotline, of course, in this, a brief one with Lance. He's drinking again, of course, we knew that from last week, but now Thea has caught on to it, and Thea is trying to give him a job, deputy mayor, I believe, was the job title, to give him a purpose, because that'll give him something to stay sober for.
Can I say, he's not acting like an alcoholic, like just someone who needs a drink. He's acting like a heroin junkie who needs the next fix. Like, he's really obvious with his tics.
Yeah, it's weird. Because I feel like, especially with an alcoholic, I feel like you probably notice it a little bit easier via smell and things like that. But sure,
Yeah, I don't feel like the
yeah,
physical need of a drink, like the physical addiction is as bad as the psychological and the other effects that
yeah.
it has on you, of course.
I think like yeah, it's just there's still tell signs, but it's completely different to what he was doing. He was doing full on. I need to like inject
It, it,
something into my
it
arm.
was like a
Yeah,
junkie, like I need my next fix, whereas this
yeah.
was more, whereas it should be more, downbeat. Like I want to drink, but I need a drink, but like sober almost.
It felt off. It didn't feel like
It did.
the right portrayal. That said,
Yeah.
I say that never really having spent any time with an alcoholic, so I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, I've spent around some, and it is.
Connor's drunk
It's
right now.
I've look. I've known a couple in my time. It's not that they don't act like junkies like that, where they're twitch because he's very twitchy. It's like, oh, need my next one. It's not like that in my experience. It's more like you say, you smell them. They're just disinterested. They're hard to get to talk to. They just don't do anything. Do you know what? It's kind of like if I'm going to just jump over to Flash a little bit. You know how we saw some Joe West last week? Kind of like that.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas this is more like, say, it's like heroin, cocaine junkie.
Yeah. So yeah, Oliver's got his new team that he's going to keep training, and I suppose there was some funny moments with Curtis trying to do the salmon ladder.
I did miss the salmon ladder. I tell you what, I miss more though. Oliver not doing it shirtless. What's the point? The whole point of the salmon ladder was that he was shirtless, wasn't
Oh
it?
yeah, and Felicity's new boyfriend's a cop, and she uses him detective, and she uses him to do some forensic stuff on the bit of rag that they find. I already think he's as bland as humanly possible, and I cannot wait for his death, which I am convinced will happen this season. This guy is dying.
Probably by mid-season.
Yeah.
Just to go back a little bit to the salmon ladder.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot how well Stephen Amell pulls off a suit. Because you see him, like I said, it's been so long since we've seen him have a life outside of vigilantism. And we never see him in a suit anymore. Pulls it off well. Looks good in it. Just want to add that.
Okay, there's one positive there for you at the end. But that's episode 2 of Arrow.
One other thing. Ragman. Why are they recruiting him?
Oh yeah, traditionally Ragman is not a hero character. This is very important. He has always been a villain. He's kind of an anti-hero, I guess, if you look at something like Secret Six, but that's
Even
about
that's not like it's a team of villains, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not really heroes.
It's basically Suicide Squad. It's another type of that.
It's kind of Suicide Squad with a little bit of a moral conscience.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's very, very odd, but whatever. I mean, having a powered person on the team might actually make for some interesting. Because I will actually say this: if I'm going to give it a positive, it's that I do like there's a bunch of new faces.
That's true. It gives them a chance to try something again.
I was never frustrated when it was the 3 recruits like training or whatever. Some of the dialogue was crappy, sure. Like yeah, like Mad Dog constantly being aggressive and like screw
Wild.
you. Sorry,
It's Wild Dog.
that's what I said.
You said Mad Dog.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take your word for it. And you're the drunk one. Jesus Christ.
I know.
But yeah, so like the dialogue wasn't that great, but at least there was like a freshness to them on there. Whereas every time it cut to Diggle, it was like, oh my god, what is this
That is true.
storyline?
That is a good point. Like you say, it's not that they were particularly good, but it was like at least engaging enough. Where like I wasn't groaning every time I saw them.
Yeah,
Wait, like the flashbacks and Diggle, it was like, oh god, this again.
yeah. Flashbacks are awful, and they've been awful for such a long time.
I defended them last week because I thought, oh, maybe they got a purpose again. I can see the arc. Nah, I was wrong. Forget it.
No, we've started the decline. The
Yep.
decline's happening. So that is episode 2 of Arrow. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. You can tell us your thoughts and theories. Like and subscribe and all that jazz. It helps us out a lot. Thank you very much for watching. Keep watching TV, guys. We'll see you next time.